All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our session. So we're just gonna wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes to see if any other students join, and then we will get the session started. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. My name is Emily Castillo. I am an admissions counselor here at WPI. Today we are having a department-specific session for bioinformatics and computational biology. We do have Professor Liz Ryder and student Emily on the call as well to kind of go over a deep dive into the department. This is a Zoom webinar format, so we cannot see you, the participant. You can see us, the panelists. So feel free to also use the Q&A function on Zoom to ask any questions along the way, and we can try to answer them, but we'll also have time at the end to answer any questions as well. All right, so I will go ahead and turn it over to Professor Liz Ryder, and you can go ahead and do your thing.
Sure, thanks so much, Emily, and welcome everybody. I'm Liz Ryder. I'm the Associate Director of the program in computational, bioinformatics and computational biology here at WPI. And Emily, do you want to just say a couple words about yourself?
Yeah, everyone, I'm a senior in the mathematics program here. I'm also a double major with the biology department. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions you guys have.
Thanks. And I'll be calling on Emily at various points. And then I think she also will talk a little bit about her senior project that she's working on this year. So I just want to get this into presentation mode. So as I mentioned, I'm the associate director. Our program director is not able to be with us tonight, but he's in the computer science department. I'm in the biology department, and the third department that's represented in the program is the mathematics department. So it's a very interdisciplinary major supported by 3 departments. So this is just a little outline of what I thought we'd go over tonight. So I usually like to start with just talking a little bit about what the field of bioinformatics and computational biology is about, because typically I think high school students don't necessarily really know much about this field and may not know much about it. So first start with that. And then I'll tell you about the BCB program at WPI, and then I'll talk a little bit about career opportunities, a little bit about the research going on in the department, and then Emily will give us the student point of view, and then we'll have questions and answers at the end. And also feel free to ask questions, put questions in the Q&A as well. Also, please feel free to email me afterwards if you think of questions after the session, or if you'd like a copy of these slides. And I'm at ryder@wpi.edu, just like the trucking company. I'm also on our website if you forget. So what is bioinformatics and computational biology? I like a really simple definition of this, which is just basically using computer science and mathematics to analyze biological data. And so these are just some examples of the kinds of biological data that we often analyze. So this is a protein-protein interaction network, fondly known as a hairball for reasons that you can probably tell. And it's just mapping out, it's a network of all the proteins in a cell and their interactions with each other. And so just looking at how complicated this network is may make you think already, oh my gosh, I would definitely need a computer. I'd need statistical techniques to figure out what associations are important. And in fact, there's a whole field of analyzing these kinds of networks. This next piece of data is a multiple sequence alignment, and these are protein sequences. You probably know that proteins are made up of amino acids. So each letter here represents an amino acid, and each line is a protein in a different organism. And so when you line them all up, if the amino acids match the same color, it appears all the way down all the columns, then that suggests that there's relationships. These proteins are related. And a lot of times, if you're interested, let's say the top one is a human protein and the bottom one is a Drosophila fruit fly protein, you might be able to find out a lot more about what's happening with this protein in Drosophila than in human. And then you can use that knowledge to learn about the human protein. And so that's why we do these multiple sequence alignments. And again, we need computers to do these. We need statistics to tell us which alignments are meaningful. And then finally, this last piece of data is from a set of cancer patients. And each line in this case is a gene. The color tells us whether the gene is turned on, is being transcribed in the cell, or is being turned off. And the columns tell us whether the patient has had a relapse or not. And so again, trying to determine which genes are important in cancer, in the progress of cancer. So again, you need computer science and mathematics to make sense of these data. So we look for patterns in the data that help us to understand, diagnose, and treat disease and understand biological systems in general. So bioinformatics as a field has really been driven by this revolution of big data in genomics. And so if you look at this chart, it only goes up to 2011. So it's out of date, but it makes the point that I want to, which is that if you look at the number of, or the price per genome of human genomes that have been sequenced, so that have been the DNA sequence, those A's and T's and G's and C's have been determined. Back in 2001, when we were first starting to sequence human genomes, it cost about $100 million to sequence one human genome. But you can see that that price has really dropped dramatically. You can see, especially here around 2007, and this drop was due to a change in sequencing technology called next generation sequencing, which resulted in sequencing being much, much cheaper from then on. And so you can see the price dropped. And as the price dropped, the number of genomes that were sequenced, shown in green, just went right through the roof. And so if this chart continued out another 10 years, it really would be through the roof. There's many sequences that have been sequenced, far more than the 10,000 shown here at the top. And so because we have all this data, it's just another demonstration of how much we need computers and math to make sense of these data and tell us, decode the genomes and tell us what they mean. So one more sort of concrete example of what you can do with this kind of sequence is called the Precision Medicine Initiative, which was launched by President Obama back in 2015. And the idea with that, I'll just show you by an example in cancer. The idea is that if you can sequence lots of different types of cancers and start to figure out whether there are some genetic causes to these cancers that are in common, then patients with tumors that share the same genetic change can receive a drug that targets that change. So we all know that cancer treatment in general can be really horrific, because if you just indiscriminately kill cancer cells, dividing cells, you also kill other dividing cells in the body. And so that's why it's so toxic. But if we can target these genetic changes, then we get a lot more specificity with our drug treatments, a lot less toxicity, and more response to the treatment. And so that's the idea with trying to do all the sequencing, is to try to come up with sort of druggable targets, so-called, that are specific to specific diseases. It's true in cancer. It's also true in other kinds of disease. Cancer is just a great example, and is one of the cases where we actually have made some progress and found drugs that allow us to have much more specific targets through using bioinformatics. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what the field in general is about. And I'm going to just go on and talk a little bit about BCB research at WPI, because so far I've really only talked about sort of sequences and DNA and RNA and protein and that stuff, which is a big part of bioinformatics. But for BCB at WPI, we have a much wider idea of what the field is. And so I think I can convey that to you by just giving you some examples of some of the research that goes on here. So the first one I wanted to mention is research from Professor Corkins Lab. And as I mentioned, he's in the computer science department. And his research is very much along the lines that I was just talking to you about. So one of the projects in his lab is to predict protein structure. And this was done just at the start of the COVID-19 epidemic, where his lab was able to predict protein structures of the COVID-19 virus and thus contribute to understanding that allow the development of the vaccine. And since then, his lab has not just predicted the structure of this spike protein, which is one of the proteins that sticks out and interacts with the human immune system, but the structure of the whole, they've modeled the structure of the whole virus with all the proteins that are involved. And so all of this research contributes towards a better understanding of how the virus replicates and how it is spread. Now, another example, Scarlett Shell, her lab, and she's in the biology and biotechnology department, her lab studies how genes are regulated during tuberculosis. And so she looks at transcription of genes from DNA into RNA and also degradation of those genes. And that both transcription and degradation controls the amount of RNA in the cell. And that in turn controls the amount of protein that's turned on in the cell. And it turns out that the TB organism is very clever in the way it can regulate its RNA to sort of hide from the host immune system over a long time. And so she's trying to understand how that works. My own research is much more on the computational biology side of the BCB, Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. I'm also in the biology and biotechnology department. But our lab works to model population decline of pollinators. So we're looking at ecosystems, much different scale than looking at viruses. And so what we do is we use a technique called agent-based modeling that allows us to model the individual behavior of bees and flowers, and then create a model where the bees, there's lots and lots of bees and flowers in the model. So it simulates a population in the ecosystem. And then we can look at the effects of stressors like pesticides on that population over time. And so this allows us to complement field studies that we do to try to understand what's the best way to sort of remedy the effects of these stressors on the population. Another research lab in the computer science department is Carolina Ruiz's lab. And her lab designs web apps that are related to health and environment. And this, I want to emphasize again, this is a very broad idea of what bioinformatics and computational biology is. Really any application of computer science or math to a biological problem fits in our definition. And so you might imagine that this web app, which deals with sleep deprivation, is pretty relevant to college students who sometimes pull all-nighters to get their work done. And then finally, the last one that I wanted to mention, and this is by no means the complete coverage of all the research going on in BCB, but this is Interdisciplinary Collaborative between Sarah Olson in the math department and Amity Manning in the biology and biotechnology department. And this is a different kind of modeling where they're modeling chromosome segregation in cancer and trying to understand through this mathematical model what some of the forces are and how they change during cancer and how we can utilize this model to try to come up with treatments for cancer that will affect the way the chromosomes segregate. So I hope that those examples give you also a better idea of the field in general and in particular what's happening at WPI. And I'd be glad to answer questions about research at WPI at the end of the talk. So moving on to our program, what do you need to learn to be a bioinformatician or a computational biologist? So this is a quote from Eric Green, who's the director of the National Human Genome Research Institute at the National Institutes of Health. And he says that scientists with expertise in biology, as well as informatics, computer science, mathematics, statistics, or engineering, a new generation of investigators who are proficient in two or more of these fields need to be trained and supported. And so when we created the BCB program, we really took this quote to heart. And that's why it's so interdisciplinary, because it's really important for bioinformatics students to be able to speak all the languages of these three disciplines that make up the program: biology, computer science, and mathematics. Typically, students also take advanced courses in one discipline. Sometimes it's between disciplines, but oftentimes it's concentrated in biology or computer science or math. And they also have to take interdisciplinary courses. And these are just some of the titles of our interdisciplinary courses, and I can tell you more about them, and Emily can too, if you have questions about those. They really, we hope that they give students a better idea of how the computer science and math is applied to biology problems, instead of just treating them all, studying them all separately. And then students, also all students at WPI are required to do a senior thesis project called the Major Qualifying Project, MQP, you may have heard of that. And we encourage students to start their research earlier, either during the year as a volunteer. Sometimes faculty have summer funding that students can work in the summer on get started on research early if they want to before their senior year. So this is just to give you an idea of the curriculum sort of overall. So these are our core courses. We have some chemistry core courses that I didn't mention in the previous slide, as well as biology, math, and computer science. This is the senior thesis, MQP. These are the advanced courses. We have an ethics course that's third, and the interdisciplinary courses. And of course, all students also do the humanities requirement, social science requirement, the interactive qualifying project as well. So just to make sure that I don't intimidate anybody, because it feels like a lot, all these different disciplines, and you may feel that you're better at one than another. You can do this program all in 4 years, no problem, even if you have no AP credit at all. And if you do have AP credit, it's great, because then you can do it quicker, or you can do more. Emily will tell you in a second about being a double major. You can do minors. You can just take more courses in things, whether or not you get a credential for it. So either way, it works out well. So this is just a sample BCB first year schedule for somebody that has no advanced placement. So you'd take a couple chemistry courses, couple math, couple computer science, couple bio. And typically we like our students to get started with their humanities requirement their first year as well. We also have a course that I teach that's recommended for first year students called Exploring Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. And we started teaching this course a few years after the program started, because we realized that all our interdisciplinary courses were at junior and senior level. And so the poor students were taking all these courses without really getting an idea of what the field was all about. And so we added this course. It's kind of a case study course, and it allows students to kind of dive in and see what some of the things are that computational biologists and bioinformaticians really do. And I hope that it helps them to decide, yes, this field is for me, or no, it's not. And it also, it's a small major. And so it also, we hope, allows the BCB majors to get to know each other a little bit, and kind of establish a cohort that they can go through the rest of the program with. We also just started a BCB club last year, and we're hoping that is also, we're reaching out to connect new incoming freshmen to older students through the club. And so hopefully that will also help students to feel very welcome. So Emily, before I continue on, do you have anything you'd like to say about, I don't remember if you started with AP credit, you're a double major, perhaps you'd like to say something about the curriculum.
Yeah, so I came into WPI with, I believe, 3 AP credits, and one of them was in biology, but that did not count for the major, obviously, but it was a free elective for me. But I am a double major, and I am set to graduate in the 4 years, no problem, but I am actually applying to the master's program for bioinformatics, so that will obviously take me another year, but the double major was no problem to graduate in 4 years. And yeah, all the courses Professor Ryder mentioned, I can say the 1003 course was definitely so helpful. I took it my freshman year, and I really got to see what the program was about, what type of applications, because I obviously had, researched the major and decided I think I want to do this. but this really helped solidify it because it gave me an idea of what the future career opportunities and applications were. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Emily. I didn't tell her to say that. As Emily mentioned, she's a double major, and it's actually, I think, biotech and BCB is the most common double major that we have, but we have quite a few CS double majors as well. Couple of math double majors, it's harder to do the math double majors. There's a little bit less overlap, but it's definitely possible. If you're careful in how you choose your courses, it can require somewhere between 4 and 8 courses beyond the BCB requirements. And remember, our courses the students take 12 a year. So 4 extra courses is not as much as it might sound like if we had them organized in a different way. So it's out of 48 total courses if you took 3 courses every term. Double majors can do a single MQP and count it for both degrees. It's slightly more credit that they have to take it, but it's not like they have to do 2 separate ones, which would be really quite prohibitive to doing the double major. So they just have to make sure that the double major covers or includes both majors, but that's really not hard to do at all. And Emily will tell you in a little bit about her double major that, of course, covers both of them. As Emily mentioned, we have a BSMS program, and if you decide to do it the way Emily is applying, you can double count courses taken for the BS towards the MS degree, up to 40% of your degree. So that is a big help, and usually students can finish in about an extra year. We also have a straight master's program, and we have a PhD program, and I just mentioned that because it's of interest that it's there if you're interested in research. And also sometimes the PhD students work with the undergrads when the undergrads are in a research lab. So it's kind of nice to have that mentoring going on in the program. We also have BS and MS and PhD degrees in data science. And I mention those because our students often take the data science courses as they're very relevant to BCB. Okay, employment prospects. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts growth in employment in biotech, pharmaceutical and healthcare industries, particularly in bioinformatics and medical informatics over the next 10 years. And this is partly due to a demand for new medications resulting from people getting older, from personalized medicine, like I was telling you about before, and from increased knowledge about the human microbiome, those little bugs that grow inside us that have such a big influence on our health, and the cancer genome. So the industry really has a need for people who can apply quantitative tools to biological problems. So this is just to show you some of the jobs, the companies that our students have gotten employment at after graduating. And they come in 3 sort of big areas. So one of them is medical and big data management. So these are kind of database management kinds of positions, typically hospitals, or this is a database company, health informatics kinds of jobs. Then another segment of our student population gets more research and development related jobs, clinical diagnostics. So one of the companies that a number of students have gone to is, if it's not really a company, it's the Broad Institute. It's a research institute, but they do hire people at the BS level, and they do all bioinformatics research. They were actually the company that has been providing us all of our PCR tests for COVID for the whole state of Massachusetts this year. And so they're really renowned in the field. And so we're very fortunate that they're in the state of Massachusetts and nearby. We also work with Foundation Medicine and the Raygon Institute, which are both more clinical bioinformatic diagnostics. And a couple of our students at the master's level have gotten jobs that are sort of core bioinformatics positions, which are really kind of fun because they work with all the biologists in a lab to help them design their experiments and analyze their data, their computational data when it comes out. So they get to work on lots of different projects in that way. And then finally, of course, many of our students get jobs in pharma and biotech, both large and small companies. So it's really quite a variety of positions. And the next couple slides are really just about restating the same thing, just so that you can see what some of the job titles are. So clinical bioinformatics analyst, data scientist, project manager, and so on. You get a little bit of an idea of what kinds of things they're doing. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that in a number of cases, the students have been able to do internships in the summer at some of these companies, and then turn those into MQP projects, so senior thesis projects, and then go back and get jobs at the end from the companies. And so it's been a really nice relationship with some of these companies in nearby in Cambridge and Boston. And finally, many of our students go on to PhD programs. These are just a few of the places that people have been to recently. And so I guess I'm at questions, but before I get to just asking for general questions, I'd like to ask Emily to say a little bit more about her experience with the project system, with her project. And I don't remember, Emily, if you have had summer internships that you might like to talk about, but whatever you think that students would be interested in.
Sure, yeah. Starting with summer internships, WPI has a program called the Early Research and Experience in E-Term, which I was a part of, and I got to work with a data science professor here at WPI. So it was definitely more mathematics, data science centered focused type of project, but it was evaluating skin cancer cell images and using a convoluted neural network to analyze that. So that was a really cool experience. But I'll move on to my current project, which is my MQP that all seniors at WPI have to take. So mine is, since I'm a double major, encompasses both the wet lab and the computer lab. And essentially what our project is I'm working in a plant lab with Professor Vidali, and we're looking at this construct called the exocyst, which is this 8 subunit protein complex that lives in all plant cells. And we know it's highly essential. We know it's highly essential for exocytosis, which, if you don't know, that's the recycling of waste products from the cell, and that's essential for cell proliferation, cell growth, cell expansion. So we know it's important, but we don't know exactly how this is happening. So what my project is trying to do is try to identify what's going on at this exocyst with the subunits and see what the protein-protein interactions are, so we can get an idea of exactly what pathways are going through. Obviously, they're very complex. So right now it's still early in the year. We're mostly in the wet lab. We're working on biotinulating or biotin tagging different molecules inside of, or using a moss as a model species. So so that's what we're doing right now. And at the end of the year, we will be doing a lot of protein modeling. Another part of bioinformatics that we did so far was designing a plasmid construct. So that's all we do, that all on really, really cool online databases where we can find different protein sequences and fuse together what we need, so we can order a construct that we can use for this project. So that's my MQP so far.
Thank you so much, Emily. And I bet that Emily probably didn't know any more biology than you do now when she first started. And now she sounds so confident and like she clearly, I know that she knows what she's talking about because I happen to be one of her advisors on this project. So you too can do really cool cutting edge stuff if you come here and join the program. So we'd love to answer any questions that you might have. I think I stopped sharing my slides because all I had was, please ask us questions. I can talk for a longer time I have information about, you know, I could talk more in depth about projects or courses or whatever, but we'd love to hear your questions.
Looks like we have a question already.
Oh, good.
See, it says, what specific software or tools are used for bioinformatics?
Oh, great question. Do you want to say what you've used, Emily, and I can talk too, or?
Sure. I mean, there's a whole lot out there. Lots of different coding languages to start. Then there's a bunch of genomic or online biological databases where sequences are stored. You can perform online alignments through NCBI. Oh gosh, there's so much out there. I don't, Professor Ryder, do you have more?
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to answer the question because there are so many different tools and a lot of them are free. So people have different favorite ones. Emily mentioned languages, and a lot of students ask what computer language is the most useful. I think the two that are the most useful are R, the letter R, and Python. And those are the two that we seem to see cropping up most often in student internships, and they're taught here in various courses. We have a Python course that we recommend students take. R, people just sort of learn it as they go. It gets used in different courses and the students pick it up. A lot of students also use MATLAB, especially more on the engineering side. Sometimes we have collaborations with engineers. They tend to use MATLAB more. But then also there's lots of more specific bioinformatics tools, like things like Top Hat, that are used to align sequences to the genome. There are online browsers where you can look at how the different transcripts line up with genes. And Emily mentioned NCBI, that's the National Center for Biotechnology Information. But if you Google NCBI, you'll find lots of tools there. Multiple sequence alignment there's lots of different ones. There's Clustal, there's Muscle. There's also BLAST is the most basic tool that you might have used in high school. That's for sequence matching, finding matches between sequence. So I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it gives you a few things to think about.
Great. Any other questions? We're here for you. So this is the time for you to ask a professor and a current student anything about WPI or the department at all.
One thing I can just mention while we're waiting for more questions is that we do have a beautiful wet lab or facility, and actually I think I have a picture of this. Oops. It's not letting me advance my screen for some reason. I'll just stop. Sometimes if I stop sharing and then reshare, it sometimes works. But I was just going to show you a picture of the Gateway facility. No, it's not letting me. Well, I'm glad that it was. Oh, there we go. Yeah, here we go. So this is just a picture of one of our labs. So you can see it's a very open space. If you're interested in biology, it's a really state-of-the-art facility, has all kinds of great microscopes. So some of our BCB projects involve image processing, if you're interested in that kind of thing. And it's highly, highly interdisciplinary. And then we also have excellent computer science IT structure. We have computer labs all across the campus. We have several Linux high performance computing clusters. We have a huge variety of software packages that WPI subscribes to. So, and typically if we don't have something that we want, we can get it or get some equivalent to it. We just have to work it out with the IT folks. So we do have a lot of resources here for you that we'd love to have you come and share with us.
Great. So if you don't have any questions right now, that's totally fine. I think this was a very thorough and deep dive into the department. Again, feel free to email Professor Liz Ryder. She offered her help if you have any questions after this. If you have any admissions related questions, feel free to email our admissions office as well. And please join into other department sessions too. But yeah, otherwise this is recorded. So if you want to look back at it, it'll be uploaded on the WPI admissions website too. So you can definitely reference that. Or if you want the slides, again, feel free to email Professor Ryder too.
Yeah, and again, my email is just ryder@wpi.edu. And you can also just email admissions and they'll forward a request to me if you don't remember.
Mhm.
I'm sure Emily would be happy to answer questions also, like we can connect you with her as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
So thank you all so much.
Chat.
Oh, sorry, Emily.
I'll just put my email in the chat if anyone's interested.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize they could see the chat.
Yes. You can
Okay, so I can put mine in there too, just in
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, just make sure it says everyone. Let's see. Great.
Oh, this says hosts and panelists. Okay, I did it wrong. Thank you.
No, no worries. It automatically defaults. Great. Very easy email.
Yes.
Great. Well,
All
thank
right.
you everyone for taking the time out of your evening to join us today. And yeah, have a great night. Good luck with your college search. And we hope you got to learn more about WPI.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.